Hey, what's up, folks? Sorry for the swayiness. I came from the gym. Anyways, what I want to talk about today is what is it that jobs are looking for? What you should be focusing on when you go into any job. And I mean any job. Whether it be working in the movie theater, you're working at retail, you're working in a restaurant, or you're doing a desk job, whatever. Even if you're working at a auto shop, something. This is something that you want to take into consideration for your next job. The reason why I want to talk about this is actually because most people don't think about this. They feel like, for instance, they work as a janitor at a movie theater and they think to themselves, well, I've only done janitorial work, so therefore I can't get a desk job or I can't work in retail. But like I said, once you focus on these matters, you can honestly apply for any job and you will be straight. This is coming from somebody who has worked multiple jobs over the years, and a lot of times, even though it shows up that some people are like, oh, you look like you're passing around, blah, blah, blah. When they look at the skills and such, the things that I'm going to talk about, they're going to be like, oh, okay, he knows what he's doing. All right. So first and foremost, what you really want to think about is, like I just said, you want to think about skills or what you've done at a job. And a lot of people don't think about that. And, it's like, say, for instance, like I said, going back to the movie theater, working as a janitor. Oh, well, I just clean up. Okay, well, think about what you're doing there. Do you actually, when you go into that workplace, do you talk to customers? If you do, that's customer service. Have you ever had to, at times be at the register and such? If that's the case, then you handle money and such. Have you ever talk to people on the phone? Once again, that's part of customer service, but you could also say that's phone service or being able to talk on the phone, blah, 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 all that. Even when you're cleaning, are you organizing your stuff? Are you being able to identify chemicals and such? I just named off 5 different things. You see what I did there? I named off 5 different skills that you could literally put on your resume. Customer service, handling, money handling. We could say the phone, you talking on the phone and such, cleaning, organizing, and chemicals. You could be able to take that to any other place. For instance, a lot of stores, if you want to say go to a Walmart, they deal with customer service all the time. Of course, you're going to have retail. You're going to have to deal with, handling money and all that jazz. You can put in food service too, whatever. Think about what you have done. Even if, say, for instance, have you ever taught somebody how to do the job? That's another thing. Then that's a form of teaching, as a form of management. When you go into a job, you want to think about what are you going to be doing. Focus on those matters, so then you can put it on your resume. The other thing too is you want to think about the time that you've worked at a place. This one's a little tricky because it sometimes certain circumstances happen. One of the issues for me, for instance, is that I've had a lot of contract work while I was working at another job. So sometimes people look at that and they think, oh, well, you're blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I was doing this over here. But one of the things people tend to think about is, how long you've been doing something. You might set yourself a time. Maybe you might work for 6 months to a year. That's usually about enough time for you to get a grasp on a lot of stuff. And so people like to see that. They like to see how long you've been doing something. And and that shows how much experience you have with something and how well knowledge you are in your field. The last thing I want to talk about is You want to think about the connections you made there or the type of people that you've worked with. This is actually pretty important because of the fact that it gives you an idea that whenever they ask you about what kind of people that you deal with and such, actually get to know each different person at your job and actually try to engage with them. So that way you can have the experience of what it's like to handle certain people. This is a little tricky for the people who don't like to socialize with other people. And that doesn't mean you have to befriend them, but it just means, can you work on teams and such? They like to see that. They like to see that you are trying to engage with other folks at your job. How do you deal with customers? How do you deal with, say, students? How do you deal with, coworkers, employers and such? They like to see that and get notes from those people. Think about how you interact with them, how you speak to them, because then when you go to your next interview, you could be able to talk to these people and say, well, I've handled these type of people. I know these type of situations. So in other words, actually, it's more or less not just people, but engage in different circumstances at your jobs. That doesn't mean you have to always try to, look for all the bad stuff. But, even when you're in a bad situation, think about how you handle it or what you learn, because they like to know your story. There's other things too I would like to say. I'll say just one extra thing is think about achievements. A lot of times some places they'll ask you, what's the achievement that you have? Think about something you have done that you were awarded for or that you were complimented about, and bring that to your next job, because they like that sort of stuff. I will say case in point, for instance, for me, one of the things I always bring up a lot of times is when I was working at the movie theater for a time, I had to sell buckets, and I managed to sell 700 plus buckets in like 3 months. And I was like in the top 3. I guarantee you, one of the things every time whenever I worked at or applied for a call center or a retail place, whatever it may be, when I brought that up, people would be like, oh, wow. So you know how to sell, you know how to reach to people, you know how to talk to people, blah, 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 all that. That's something to keep in mind. So that's all I have. Is I just want to be able to talk about that. So like I said, think about your skills. Think about, the people you interact with. Bring these things, write these things in your resume, your achievements and such. And also the amount of time that you worked in a place. These are very important things. I hope the best for people who are trying to look for something. And this is particularly for people who, again, I've encountered people who felt like, I actually encountered somebody who worked at a movie theater and they did not know that they could go for other things. And I had to tell them, like, think about what you're doing and such, and you're fine. So that's all. I hope the best for you guys. Let me know if this stuff works out and put up some other stuff what you think people will need. And in case, you guys have a blessing. Oh, and then a side note, if you do need to get your certifications and all that jazz for certain things, some of the stuff may not work for that, but these are still things that they can take into consideration. So if you have to get a certificate, go get that certificate. But just keep that in mind, like, hey, I have these other things. All right, take care. Peace.